All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to Getting Back to the Basics with ourselves and our schools. And I have to say, Jacob, I have thoroughly been looking forward to my time with you because um, you were the person that came to mind when we were writing the very first chapter of the book. And so I could not wait to be able to have some time with you. The chapter we thought of for you was around this idea of what sparked us to go into education. We all have a different why, a different story of how we got here, but then also looking at you're all gun ho when you get in to the business and the world of education, and then what happens when that spark
Mm.
starts to dim out a little bit. And so we specifically chose you to be our podcast guest because you shared with us that you were considering leaving the world of education. You thought your time there was done, your impact was all that you could make, and so there was a loss of that spark, and there was a little bit of uncertainty. So I was just wondering if you could kind of start off just describing like what got you to that place in your head. Where did that come from? Share that with us and the listeners.
Sure. Well, I had a lot of experiences in education, and this around this time it had been my 10th year serving as a principal in my second school, and honestly, I think I got lost. Like I got buried in the work of initiatives and trying to carry everything and I'll call it a threat, even though it's not a threat, but the threat of accountability. It was all weighing so heavily, and I felt so far from why I first got into this, which was to help kids and to help teachers help kids. Um, and so just carrying all of that was exhausting. And every day I just felt like I can't see the impact that I'm trying to make because I'm so buried in it and I'm so reactive to everything that's going on around me that I'm not really fueling my fire or fueling what I wanted to do or what I wanted the building to feel like and how I wanted interactions to feel with families and students and just the whole nine yards. Like I was concerned with it all.
And the things that you listed out, I don't think that there's an administrator out there that hasn't felt that at some point in time. Unfortunately, when we feel all that at the same time, it does become too heavy of a burden to carry. And so when you're in that moment, it's hard for you to be able to maybe recognize like, is it my mindset that's getting in the way? Is it the ask or too much? Is it a combination of all of that? And just to share with the viewers, you and I connected maybe two or three times in person, and I knew your executive director, and she's like, "Hey, would you go talk to this friend of mine? He's a fellow principal," and I did, and you were cordial, and you listened, but I was not able to get you to come to camp. And then your old AP, who became a principal, came to camp, and she called me. She's like, "I'm going to get him there," and I said, "Well." I would love it if you would. So maybe share what was the hesitation um, of not coming to camp.
Okay, just full transparency. I thought it's going to be one more thing. It's going to
Yeah.
be one more thing where I'm sitting around talking about my why and trying to figure out, how I can re-energize this passion that I thought I once had. And I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to spend time talking about that or reliving that. I just felt like spent, that this
Yeah.
has expired. And the only way that I can re-energize myself is to do something completely different. And that's kind of where my mindset was. It was very closed at that time. And honestly, Dana, I didn't know that it was closed. Like I thought that this was just the natural progression of what was next for me. I didn't realize that I could open my eyes and clean the lens from what I thought I had been looking through, to see the work I was doing in a totally different way. And
You gave me goosies.
well, and Camp Explore did that for me. Like it really did change the way that I was seeing things. And it wasn't that I didn't like working with students or didn't like working with teachers, even those that are really fun to wrangle. But I was lacking clarity, and I was lacking clarity within my own self. So I was good at listening and, following. I was like that student that sits in your room and they just become sort of complacent. And um, I was operating under compliance, I think, and not commitment. And that's what I was missing. And that's what my school was missing too, which is so interesting that at the same time that we were having this rebirth, or that I was having this rebirth, it was so simple. And I just had to pause and I had to focus in on student and teacher impact other than the noise that was surrounding me, which was a lot. And I think every principal does feel that. And I think every principal probably goes through that time where they feel ineffective and they feel like, nothing I do is good enough. Nothing is making a jump high enough. That's making those numbers on the state report card grow and those ratings grow. And so you're constantly searching for new things. And that's where I was. I was lost and trying to solve a problem that really I had all the tools to solve it myself. And, finally jumping on board and coming to camp reopened that for me and relit that fire for me just to look at what I already know and to use other people and to understand that I can't do this by myself and I don't have to. And it's not a weakness that I have to lean on other people. It's not a barrier that I need help. And it's actually better. So through camp, I mean, even one of the simplest things, which was creating a theme and really firing that theme up and making it go throughout every single fabric of what we do from day to day, was just so interesting. And I had done themes before, but never like this. And just hearing that at camp when we were sitting around that campfire, like I think maybe the last day, I thought, man, this really is easy. This is really something that matters. This isn't just something that's cute or a gimmicky situation that I can put on social media. I mean, this is something that we can live and we can breathe while we're in the building.
And what you just spoke to is the title, right? Getting back to the basics. And so something that can be so simple and yet impactful at the same time. But you spoke volumes in what you just shared, that you had everything you needed. You just needed to be reminded of it. But not just that, it was that vulnerability of I was closed off, but I didn't know I was closed off.
Mhm.
So you did trust your AP, and you did come along with her. And I think from a camp counselor point of view, we got to see you change right in front of our eyes. Like you could just see the aha moments. And so thinking about like what were those key things that you were able to take away from camp? Because we focus on mindset, skill set, and tool set. Was it a combination of a few things, or was it just something in particular that you were just like, man, that's going to change my world?
It was a combination of things. It was the energy that I felt when I walked in the room, but it was also the people who were in there, the campers. We all kind of became a family, and I'm more of a quiet kind of person. Like I don't always put
Reserve, Jacob, just a
a
little reserve.
little bit there. Always watching, and I'm always, looking at what other people are doing and what they're saying, and I think about that deeply. And for me to be activated by someone else enough to want to share and to want to be part of being a camper was big. And I felt it. Like it wasn't, I didn't feel forced to do it. The way camp worked is there were times to have fun, which the whole thing was fun, but there were times where we could focus on ourselves, like through a yoga class or, through reading something that made you think about something else just for a minute, but then putting your own stamp on it and your own experience of where you've been and what your school needs while talking to people who are going through the same thing. And for me, that was really, really big. And just like I'm sure every other principal, I had been through hundreds of PDs. I have led professional learning that, even I'm falling asleep during them. And the thing is when I walk away from it, I walk away with a list of things to do, not a list of practical strategies that I can try that can help me do the work better by energizing other people. And those are the two things that came together for me, I think probably by midday, the first day. And, we're playing all these games and we're shaking these clappers and I'd roll my eyes at all of that stuff, but man, I was reaching for the clapper. I wanted my goat to be at the top of that mountain. And it wasn't because of the just the semblance of it. It was I'm moving and I'm growing and I can see it happening right here with all of these people and you kind of collect people. These are people now that I can reach out to and we can share things with, and I can call and say, man, I don't know what I'm doing with this. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And before I would have thought, this shows weakness. I've been doing this now this is my 11th year as a principal, and I should know what I'm doing. But the truth is, I think for me, once I felt like I knew what I was doing, that was the biggest barrier. Because the truth is, every day is different. And when you're working with humans, you've got to change and you've got to adapt if you want to keep rolling. And those scores are not going to improve just because you purchase a program or because you really believe in one book that you've read that says something great. It is through you really living out what you want to do and how you want your school to feel and how you want the people in your school to treat each other and to treat themselves. So for me, it was, being that camper, being surrounded by people who thought like I did, even if their ideas were different, they were still there for the same reasons that I was. Um, and then really learning things that I can do, that I could tweak, that I could see happen that were practical and not foolish. These are things that are very simple. I can go pick up sticks in the yard and I have a book now to connect that to. And I can put those sticks in those classrooms so that teachers continue to remember what we're doing and how we need to stick together. So all of those things were it was just an amazing experience for me. And it really did change how I felt about myself.
I'm just sitting here just smiling from ear to ear, which is such a tribute because you are a person, you may be reserved, but now every time I get to interact with you, you are smiling from ear to ear. And I wanted to share with the listeners that I just did a school visit, just impromptu. I was in your area and I dropped by, and of course that secretary was guarding you with her life, like not gonna let me in kind of thing. And I was like, no, really, he'll be glad to see me. I'm a camper. And I got to just spend maybe 20, 30 minutes with you. And the first thing out of your mouth was, this has been my best year yet. And you took me around and showed me different things that you had implemented, that you had learned from camp, and how you'd used it, and what impact it was getting. And it was wonderful to be able to see you took the learning and you actually applied it. And that was like a two-way fill our bucket kind of thing. I also want to say every time you show up to our fireside chats where we come back together once a month virtually, you are able to say different things that you're continuing to try. So you are the epitome of what we set out to do, which is, yes, light a fire under you, give you a new spark, but then being able to give you the kindling and the oxygen you need to keep that fire going. And that's what we've seen in you over this time together. Is there anything that you would pinpoint and you would say, this was my personal and or my professional impact that maybe was a gift that you never anticipated? And you've spoken to that a little bit. I just wanted to see if there was anything you would elaborate around that this was an impact I didn't see coming.
I think a lot of it has been very self-reflective. And I think for me, it was a harsh realization, but I realized that my inner thinking or my mindset was very negative and it was very cloudy and very dark. So the impact of camp for me, and I guess the spark that was lit that moved those clouds away and really brightened everything up was that I really believed I could do it. I had everything that I needed right before me. I had the right people in place. There were things that were difficult that are barriers in our school that were not a crisis at the end of the day. And before they felt so heavy and it felt like, gosh, I got to do this again, and everything just felt like this loop that would never end. Um, but realizing how I could just shift or tweak just a couple of things that would bring new life brought energy back from people that I was working with that I hadn't seen before. And I knew that it was coming from me. I knew that it was energy that I had found again that emanated from who I was and what I was doing and what I was saying. And I hope that doesn't sound cocky because I had really lost some self-esteem in all of this. And, some of the punches you're thrown just through, challenging parents who all care about their children, just it might look differently than the way that I would care about children, but things that became hassles and things that just weighted me down. And I got stuck there. And so badly, and I'll admit this too, that there are people that I work with that all I could see were their mistakes. Like I couldn't see where they had room for a spark or where they needed one. All I saw was, okay, this has been 3 times now that this has happened. I've got to move on. I've got to find someone else. And so I was just constantly stuck. So I think just the biggest impact for me is finding that energy within myself again, where I had a smile on my face and it wasn't fake. I wasn't forcing it. It was, we got this. We can do it. And I need you all to be on board and to help me do this because we truly are better together. And that actually became our theme for this year. And everything was about that. And it was so funny. Like in the first couple of days, like I revamped our entire beginning of the year meetings that everybody dreads. I remember getting that email from my principal and thinking, oh God, here we go again. I got to wear a cowboy hat and I got to pretend to do all this stuff. But I didn't want to do that to people. I really wanted them to see the meaning behind what we were doing and why we were doing it, but I wanted them to have fun while it was happening. And even I think the first day someone came up to me, they're like, I see what you just did with this handbook. We did the campfire thing where they had to roll a dice. We actually did the spin the bottle, and they were like, we see what you're doing there, and you're tricking us. And I said, absolutely. And I said, but you had
Mhm.
fun, didn't you? And you got the content, and you didn't have to read the whole thing, and you were able to talk to other people. And then Dana, for me, what fired me up even more is maybe 2 weeks after that, I saw the same thing happening in our classrooms. Like teachers were using that same method with their students, which was a game changer. It's a total game changer to the culture of the building. And we just had, we're doing a data protocol today with map data, and teachers are all talking about the culture and how the culture is really fueling what we're doing in the building. And it's not about just a one-time thing or like we have HMH. We're not trying to really learn how we can best read this stuff that's in a teacher manual. It's what do our kids need and how can we focus on student impact over a program? And that is huge for us. And it's exciting. So it's
It
not one of those things where we walk out of a meeting and you have 36 things to do that have nothing to do with students or what you're trying to do to grow students. Now it's let's talk into that and let's talk about how we can make it better. And even when we do something really great, let's talk about that some more and see how it can be even better the next time. So for me, that's where I am, and it's lasted. I've been to things before that I've liked and that I felt good about, but 3 phone calls later in a parent conference or a teacher absence and a sub needed, and you're right back where you started. But I've been able to sustain this energy, and I mean, I give all of that to Camp Explorer and the experience I had there, and having those fireside chats that keep me back into the fire. You don't let us go, and so that's just been a great piece of this for me and something that I look forward to.
It is. It is a true partnership. We don't want to let you go. We want campers for life. And for those people out there that don't know much about Camp Explorer, you can come back every summer because there's different content offered and you get to see those friendships you made from the previous year camp and it carries over. Your level of reflectiveness, I hope the listeners hear your head and heart because what you've done is you've aligned those. And then what listener out there doesn't want some of the impact that you've seen? Ripple effect, right? So you can model strategies. It doesn't matter if you're a 6-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 36-year-old. An effective strategy is an effective strategy. So you learned a strategy to help cover content that, yeah, who wants to read a handbook? And then to see that used in a math class, that is the epitome of what you want to be able to do as an instructional leader. And just to clarify, when he said spin the bottle, that was the strategy, not the game that you played in middle school. We didn't do that, but it was such a fun way to spark conversation. And then, like you said, man, those kids will always remember playing that game. And so using gamification, I just thought of something else that it didn't register with me. You actually, you came to the admin camp in the summer, but you came in the winter with a group of teachers to our test prep camp and to be able to learn alongside of them. And that is part of being able to keep your learning going across time. And so, man, 9 months, a year, when's the last time that happened that what you learned in June or you learned in January is still taking place in April and May? So, thank you for sharing that story. As we conclude, we want to celebrate you because you are also getting ready to go on a new adventure. You're going to be packing your backpack because you're changing roles, and that role is going to be able to create a ripple effect at the district level. And I hope that you will continue to use some of those strategies with the adults that you're working with in your new role, but to see you continue to grow, that means the world to us. So we celebrate you. We wish you luck. But once you're a camper, you're always a camper. So you're going to
Oh,
bring,
and I'm not letting go. I am
yeah,
not letting
that's
go.
right. You bring that team. Any final thoughts or words you want to say to the listeners or the book readers, whichever one that they access this? Anything else you want to leave them with as words of wisdom from Jacob Moree?
I think, when you find yourself in those spots where you feel like you're just in a hole by yourself, you've got to take care of yourself. And you have to do that through whatever way can reach you. And sometimes getting help in that, whether it's through Camp Explore, or some other way, it doesn't really take much to dig you out. And the solution's always right there. And for me, I found it within myself and I found it within the people that I work with that I've seen every day for years. And, I just, it's never too late to start to try to pull out of these people what they want to give because everybody has something that they want to give. And for me, it was just as simple as getting that energy back. And once I was able to get clear on what moves students forward here at Oakdale and what moves our teachers forward, um, I knew what I needed to focus on to build that team and to build them stronger, not to just expect that year after year they were just going to grow by hope. I know that hope is not a strategy and that I have to be part of that. And so finding that in myself and sharing that energy with them and new tips and strategies of things that they can do that are practical, that are simple, easy, and fun, was exactly what I needed. So I know that everybody else can do that too. You just have to really dig in and listen to yourself and not be afraid to lean on somebody else.
Right. That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us a chance. Thank you for listening to your AP and letting her guide you to a new place. But most importantly, thank you for being the light and the spark, and knowing that it changed the culture in your building should be a reminder that the work you do is important and it matters. And so for that, we thank you. And hopefully, we'll have you back on as a guest in a future podcast as you speak to us from a
I love
different.
that. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
All right. Thank you.